Hello and welcome. Tonight, on what I'm calling a definitive, completely unarguable and frankly perfect list, we are going back. Back to a time when the music was questionable, the fashion was frankly a disaster, but the cars were magnificent. We're talking about the 1990s, a decade of glorious, unapologetic European horsepower and design. This wasn't just about getting from A to B, it was about how much noise you could make, how wide a grin you could stretch across your face, and how utterly brilliant it felt to be behind the wheel. These were the cars that told the world that Europe was still the king of the road. This decade gave us some of the most legendary machines ever to grace the tarmac. We saw the birth of performance icons that still make grown men go weak at the knees, the pinnacle of air-cooled engineering, and hot hatches that were more fun than a barrel of monkeys on a bouncy castle. Forget your modern, soulless electric boxes with their silent efficiency and their endless safety warnings. This was an era of raw, unfiltered, mechanical genius. These cars had character, they had flaws, and most importantly, they had soul. So buckle up, because tonight we're counting down the 10 greatest European cars of the 1990s. This isn't just a list, it's a journey back to the last great decade of motoring, a tribute to the engineering marvels that defined an era and continue to capture our hearts. From German precision to Italian passion and a few British and Swedish surprises along the way, we're about to celebrate the very best of a golden age. And if you disagree with my list, well, you're wrong. Let's get on with it. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a car that, quite frankly, democratized genius. It's the BMW E36 M3. Now, the original M3, the E30, was a homologation special, a hardcore racer for the road. It was brilliant, but also a bit spiky, a bit demanding. This, the E36, was different. It was the M3 that grew up, put on a decent suit, but kept its boxing gloves hidden underneath. It was a car you could drive to the supermarket, drop the kids off at school, and then, on the way home, take the long route and utterly demolish a winding country road. It had this sublime balance that almost nothing else could touch. What BMW did here was nothing short of witchcraft. They took a standard 3 Series saloon, a car your boring uncle might drive, and injected it with pure, unadulterated motorsport magic. The engine, a glorious straight 6, sang a metallic symphony all the way to the red line, and the chassis. Oh, the chassis was a masterpiece of communication. You knew exactly what the car was doing every single second. It wasn't the fastest car of the decade, not by a long shot, but for its blend of everyday usability and sheer accessible driving pleasure, it was, and still is, utterly brilliant. It set the template for every performance saloon that followed. At number 9, we have a car that wasn't about speed or lap times. It was about absolute, unequivocal, iron-fisted dominance. The Mercedes-Benz W140 S-Class. This wasn't just a car, it was a statement. It was a rolling fortress of Teutonic engineering built at a time when Mercedes engineers weren't constrained by budgets, but by the laws of physics, and even then they had a good go at bending them. They say Mercedes spent $1 billion developing this thing, and frankly, you can see where every single penny went. The doors closed with the reassuring thud of a bank vault. It was packed with innovations that we take for an absolute given today. Double glazed windows for silence, soft closed doors, an electronic stability program. It even had electrically extending guide rods at the back, so you could park the behemoth without hitting a small planet. Driving one wasn't like driving a car, it was like commanding a luxury ocean liner that had somehow been taught to handle. It was vast, it was silent, it was impossibly comfortable. The W140 wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of success, power, and the sheer glorious arrogance of building the best car in the world, no matter the cost. Now, from the pinnacle of luxury to the champion of the people, at number 8, it's the Volkswagen Golf Mac 3 GTI. Right, let's be honest, the Mac 3 GTI had a bit of a tough time. It followed the legendary Mac 1 and the brilliant Mac 2, and some people will tell you it had gone a bit soft, a bit lardy, and they're not entirely wrong. It was heavier, more comfortable, more sensible. But that's precisely why it's on this list. It took the hot hatch concept, which had been a bit raw and yobbish, and made it accessible to everyone. It was the GTI for the 90s generation. It may not have been the sharpest tool in the box compared to its predecessors, but it was still a huge amount of fun. It had a willing engine, a decent chassis, and that indefinable golfness that just makes it a brilliant all-rounder. Millions of them were sold, and for a whole generation of young drivers, this was their first taste of proper performance. It was the car you aspired to own, the car you saw on every high street, often with questionable modifications, but always with an owner who loved it. It kept the hot hatch flame alive and proved that fun could also be practical and reliable. At number 7, we have a car that is quite simply absurd. It's a family estate car, an Audi RS2 Avant that was sent to Porsche to be turned into a supercar-slaying monster. The result was this, the Audi RS2 Avant. This car is the reason Audi's RS division exists. It was the genesis, the big bang of fast Audis, and what a way to start. Porsche took Audi's 5-cylinder turbo engine, fitted a massive turbocharger and tweaked the suspension and brakes. The result was a humble-looking wagon that could accelerate from 0 to 30 miles per hour, faster than a McLaren F1. Think about that for a moment. A car you could take to the tip with the dog in the back could embarrass genuine supercars at the traffic lights, especially in the wet, thanks to its quattro all-wheel drive system. It was the ultimate sleeper, a wolf in sheep's clothing, if the sheep was also wearing hiking boots and had been to the gym. It made no sense at all, which is precisely why it was so brilliant. It was a lunatic in a sensible suit, a perfect blend of German practicality and Porsche's motorsport insanity. A true legend. Coming in at number 6 is a car that restored faith, the Ferrari F355. Its predecessor, the 348, was difficult. It looked good, but it was notoriously tricky to drive fast. The F355 changed everything. It was, and I will argue this to my dying day, one of the most beautiful cars ever made. Every line, every curve, every vent is just perfect. It's a piece of sculpture that just happens to have a V8 engine in the middle. And my word, what an engine it was. The first production car with 5 valves per cylinder, a detail that matters. This was the car that made Ferraris brilliant to drive again. It wasn't just fast, it was usable. The handling was sublime, communicative, and forgiving. And the noise, oh the noise. That flat-plane crank V8 screaming its lungs out at 8,500 RPM is one of the greatest sounds in the automotive world. It's not a noise, it's an event. The F355 was a turning point for Ferrari. It combined breathtaking beauty with a truly sensational driving experience, and for the first time, a Formula One-style paddle-shift gearbox. It was modern, it was gorgeous, and it was utterly intoxicating. At the halfway point, number 5, we have a small French hatchback with a very big reputation, the Renault Cleo Williams. Now, don't be fooled by the name. The Williams F1 team had very little to do with it, apart from letting Renault stick their badges on it. But that doesn't matter, because what Renault Sport created was one of the finest hot hatches of all time. It was designed to be a homologation special for rallying, and you can feel that motorsport DNA coursing through its veins. It was light, it was nimble, and it was ridiculously fun. They took a standard Cleo, painted it in this gorgeous metallic blue, fitted gold speedline wheels, and then worked their magic underneath. The 2-litre engine was a gem, full of character and eager to reverence. But the real star was the chassis. It was just so adjustable, so playful. You could steer it on the throttle, lifting off mid-corner to tighten your line in a way that would make a modern, safety-obsessed car have a complete electronic meltdown. It was pure, unadulterated, 3-wheeled cornering fun. A small car with a massive heart and a giant killing ability. A true cult classic. At number 4 is a car that represents the end of an era. It's the Porsche 911, but not just any 911. This is the 993, the last of the air-cooled legends. For Porsche purists, this is it. The peak, the final, most developed, most beautiful evolution of a design that had started decades earlier. After this, the 911 would switch to water cooling, and while it would get faster and more efficient, a little bit of the magic, a little bit of that idiosyncratic character was lost forever. The 993 was the final, glorious crescendo of the air-cooled symphony. It wasn't just about the engine, though. The 993 was stunningly beautiful. Designer Tony Hatter smoothed out the classic 911 shape, creating a look that is both muscular and elegant and frankly timeless. It still looks perfect today. It was also the first 911 to get a properly sophisticated multi-link rear suspension, which finally tamed the car's notorious tendency to swap ends if you were clumsy with the throttle. It was still a challenge, still a proper driver's car, but now it worked with you. It was the perfect blend of classic 911 feel with a dose of modern usability. An icon. Number 3. Prepare for some Italian fire. This is the Alfa Romeo 155 V6 Ti. Now, you might be thinking, a 155? A boxy saloon? Yes, but this isn't just any 155. This is the road-going echo of a motorsport legend. In the 1990s, touring car racing was war, and the 155 V6 Ti was the ultimate weapon. It dominated the German Touring Car Championship, the DTM, humiliating the Germans on their home turf with its screaming V6 engine and all-wheel drive traction. It was a glorious moment of Italian triumph, and while the road car wasn't quite the fire-breathing racer, it carried that same spirit. It had flair, it had passion, it had a soul that its German rivals could only dream of. The V6 engine was a masterpiece, not just a power unit, but a musical instrument that stirred your soul every time you turned the key. The handling was sharp, engaging, and full of that Latin character. It wasn't the most reliable car, obviously, it's an Alfa. But when it worked, my word, it was special. It was a four-door saloon that thought it was a racing car. And for that glorious, belligerent attitude, it more than earns its place here. Our runner-up at number 2 is another French hot hatch. But this one is arguably the greatest of them all, the Peugeot 306 GTI 6. If the Cleo Williams was the playful puppy, this was the finely honed athlete. Peugeot in the 90s were absolute masters of chassis tuning, and the 306 was their magnum opus. What made it so special was its passive rear-wheel steering. It sounds complicated, but what it meant was that the car had an almost supernatural ability to pivot into corners. It felt alive, agile, and incredibly rewarding to drive quickly. It also had a secret weapon, a 6-speed gearbox. This was serious stuff for a hatchback in the mid-90s, allowing you to keep the high-revving 2-litre engine perfectly in its power band. It wasn't just a gimmick, it transformed the driving experience. The 306 GTI 6 was a car that begged you to drive it properly. It rewarded skill and flattered the driver, making you feel like a hero on your favorite back road. It blended this incredible dynamic talent with a handsome design and enough practicality to use every day. For pure, unadulterated front-wheel drive handling brilliance, it has almost never been bettered. And so we arrive at number 1, the greatest European car of the 1990s, and it is a Volvo estate. Yes, you heard me, the Volvo 850 T5R. This is the king. Why? Because it completely and utterly shattered every single preconception you ever had about Volvo. Volvo made safe, sensible, boxy cars for dentists and antique dealers, and then one day they clearly hired a lunatic who decided to collaborate with Porsche, stuff a 2.3-litre 5-cylinder turbocharged engine under the bonnet, and paint it in a colour called cream yellow. The result was a legend. This car, this flying brick, became an icon overnight, partly thanks to its hilarious campaign in the British Touring Car Championship, where it would race with a stuffed dog in the window. But the road car was the real deal. It had 240 horsepower, a warbling 5-cylinder soundtrack that sounded like half a V10, and performance that could genuinely worry sports cars of the day. It was the ultimate Q car, a practical, safe, reliable family estate that could unleash hellfire with a flex of your right foot. It was absurd, it was hilarious, and it was brilliant. It proved that you could have it all safety, space, and sensational speed. It was a game changer, the best of the 90s. And there you have it. 10 cars that proved the 1990s was a decade of pure, unadulterated motoring brilliance. From the raw thrills of a French hot hatch to the overwhelming might of a German limousine and the sheer wonderful absurdity of a racing Volvo estate. These were cars with character, cars built with passion, cars that created memories that last a lifetime. They weren't just transport, they were experiences, each and every one of them. They represent a high watermark for the internal combustion engine, a time before everything became sanitized and sensible. Of course, this is just my list, my completely correct and perfect list, obviously. But I'm sure some of you will have other ideas. Perhaps you think I'm an idiot for leaving out the McLaren F1, which I did, because it's not a car, it's a deity, and that's a different list. Or maybe your heart belongs to a Lancia Delta Integral or a TVR Griffith. The beauty of this era is that there are so many incredible machines to choose from, so now it's your turn. Get down into the comments and tell me what I missed. What is your favorite European car of the 90s? Let the debate commence. Thank you so much for joining me on this little trip down a very fast memory lane. It's been a privilege to revisit these icons with you. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more definitive and unarguable content, and ring that little bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then, drive safe, but never ever forget to have some fun. Goodbye.